The door sat still as a mountain, quiet and indifferent as the sea on a windless day. This was not a door for opening. It was a door for staying closed. Out of all the mysteries yet to be solved in the Kingkiller Chronicle, the one that I think I'm most curious about is finding out what's behind the foreplay door in the archives of the university. Could there be hidden information on the Chandrian and Amyr? Or perhaps the door is acting as a prison for some powerful being? There's many convincing theories out there, which I'll be talking about in this video, as well as theories on how the door is opened. This video contains spoilers for both the Name of the Wind and the Wise Man's Fear, so make sure you've read those. What's behind the foreplay door? Now, before getting into theories, let me clarify which door I'm speaking of. This is the door that's located in the archives, the great stone building at the university that houses 10 times 10,000 books. It's specifically found in the Stacks, a section of the archives that's only accessible to students admitted to the Arcanum. We get the description for this door in chapter 43 of the Name of the Wind, which I'll summarize. It's described as being a single seamless piece of gray stone with no hinges, handle, or sliding panel. Its only features being 4 copper plates that, along with everything else, are flush with the wall. Each of the copper plates have a hole in the center, which are undoubtedly keyholes. In its center between the plates, there's a word chiseled deep into the stone, Valaritas. This word is obviously of some importance. Not only is it chiseled on the door, but it's also engraved on the 10th anniversary edition of the Name of the Wind. It is fair to say that I have a gentle madness where secrets are concerned. If something is kept from me, I cannot help but pursue and uncover it. But this particular secret drew at me more than any other. The university is the heart of all civilization. The archives is the heart of the university. What then lay there in the heart of the archives? What was Valaritas? It's hard to say exactly what this word means, but I think it's inspired from the Latin word veritas, which means truth. The reason being is that veritas is actually commonly used in the mottos of many real-life colleges and universities, most notably Harvard University. And if there's a mysterious locked door with a word meaning truth written above it, then you better bet there's some secrets behind that door. This leads me to the first theory. Now, if the door is an enclosure of truth, then perhaps behind is knowledge hidden from the public, unaltered histories with all the details intact, information on the Chandrian and Amyr. It's evident that this information has been scrubbed from the archives. In fact, many people think that Master Lauren, the master in charge of the archives, is a member of the Amyr. When Lauren discovers that Kvothe is requesting books about the Chandrian and Amyr, he meets with him to discourage this search, and afterwards he even crosses out his ledger requests. Supposedly to stop Kvothe from looking childish, but I think it's more so to stop any other curious eyes. And shortly after is when Kvothe is banned from the archives for being caught with a lit flame. Thanks, Ambrose. Lauren even has a giller named Viari whose job it is to retrieve rare books from around Temerant and bring them back to the university. I think there's a possibility some of these are being locked behind the foreplay door. While it's clear that Lauren has a love for books, I think he also wants to be in control of what information is out there, which definitely feels like a for the greater good attitude of the Amyr. And if this is true, who knows how many of the other masters are also Amyr, and maybe they've hidden other powerful artifacts behind the door as well. Maybe there's some type of book on shaping that ends up getting Kvothe kicked out of the university. We know there's rumors that he steals some hidden knowledge from the university and that he's eventually kicked out. There was that brief moment in the Name of the Wind where he was sentenced to expulsion, but it was immediately suspended. So I don't really think that counts. I think next time he'll be kicked out for good. And I assume that breaking into the foreplay door and stealing hidden knowledge would do the trick. This could also be what Devi is after, as we know she desperately wants access to the archives. As for why I think this could be a book on shaping, it's kind of just a hunch, but for one thing, the words chiseled above the doors leading into the archives read Vorfellen Renata Mori, which Willem states that this means the desire for knowledge shapes a man, or something close to that. That's his rough translation, and it likely means something slightly different, though I think it does have to do with shaping. And also, on one of Pat's blog posts, he was commenting on fans' tattoos, and when he saw that someone got a tattoo of that quote on their arm, he said, "Woo boy, you better hope I wasn't lying when I said what that translated into." Which is why you should probably wait until you know exactly what something means before getting it tattooed on your skin. Now, after his first encounter with the door, it goes pretty much unmentioned until the end of the first book in chapter 86, when Kvothe asks Elodin if now that he's Relar, he can know what's behind the door. To which Elodin replies with, "You don't aim for small secrets, do you? Valaritas, God, I can still remember what it was like. Standing down there, looking at the door, wondering. Merciful Telu, it almost killed me." This last line could obviously be him talking about the mere curiosity that almost killed him, or maybe it's talking about the mental strain of trying to open the door that ended up sending him to Haven. Speaking of which, it's interesting how Elodin's cell in Haven had copper in the walls, like how the four-plate door has copper. And many fans have speculated that copper is an element that namers don't have power over. I won't really go into that theory here, but maybe it means that the copper on the four-plate door is keeping somebody or something within. Now, we know that Elodin once was Chancellor of the University for a short amount of time, and it's possible he knows exactly what's behind the door. Maybe there's something behind it that literally almost killed him. One of the biggest clues we have for this theory comes from the dream that Fela has. In her dream, Valaritas was the name of an old dead king. His tomb was behind the door. This is interesting, as the archives has been described as looking like a giant barrow. I couldn't find the exact quote on this, but it is mentioned on the fandom page. There's even a part of the archives called the Tomes, but because of its crypt-like quietness, students often call it tombs. But if the archives is in a sense a burial place, then this is pretty ironic. And there's also a deleted scene from the Wise Men's Fear that Roth has posted on his blog. And in the scene, Kvothe asks Puppet if he finds it odd that there's so little information about the Amyr in the stacks. To which Puppet replies, "Oh, certainly, there should be scads of books. Barrows full." Here's that word again. Now, where else have we heard the word barrows? Okay, well, it's actually used quite a bit in these books, but future Kvothe says he has stolen princesses from sleeping barrow kings. Princess and king being plural could be a misconception of the story being falsely told over time, and Kvothe just rolling with it, as it wouldn't be the first time this has happened. And if you know the theory of Ari being Princess Ariel, which I did make a video on, well, Ari could be the same princess that he steals. Here's one key passage I forgot to mention in that video. "Underneath the university, I found what I wanted most, yet it was not what I expected, as is often the case when you gain your heart's desire." Chronicler found himself thinking of a story he had heard, one of the many. The story told of how Kvothe had gone looking for his heart's desire. He had to trick a demon to get it, but once it rested in his hand, he was forced to fight an angel to keep it. What if Ari, or maybe a book of secrets that she gives him, is his heart's desire? She's kind of been there for him like family, and we know that Kvothe loves her like a sister and would do anything to protect her. The demon could be the Barrow King, if we're assuming this king is locked behind the door. And there is actually many theories connecting Ari to one of Telu's angels, but in this case, I just really hope she isn't. Personally, I'm not really sure if she's an angel, but I think she is connected to the moon. But if there is a Barrow King locked behind the door, who is this king? In the Wise Men's Fear, Felurian mentions a powerful shaper who stole the moon and created the Fey Realm. He's now shut beyond the doors of stone. It's obvious that the great shaper she's talking about is Eax, also known as Jax, as both Bast and Hesp have said he's the one who stole the moon. And by pulling the moon into the Fae, he sparked the creation war. In one story, Jax builds a folding house, a house with multiple entrances, different times in different rooms, and multiple seasons. The bedroom is mentioned as being in Twilight, just like Felurian's Twilight Glade. It's quite evident that this house is a representation of the creation of the Fey Realm. Now, during the greatest battle of the Creation War, known as the Black of Drocentor, Lanray sealed the enemy behind the doors of stone before he died, and was brought back to life by Lyra. Meaning this same enemy could very well be Eax, as we know he has also been shut beyond the doors of stone. And maybe the door he was sealed behind is the four-plate door, and this door remains in the one unfallen city that we learn about in Ademre. 6 of them betrayed the cities that trusted them. 6 cities fell fell and their names are forgotten. One remembered the Lenthani and did not betray a city. That city did not fall. One of them remembered the Lenthani, and the empire was left with hope, with one unfallen city. But even the name of that city is forgotten, buried in time. I believe this city buried in time is Belen. Belen was the city that Lanray and Lyra saved from a surprise attack from a foe that should have overwhelmed them. And it's a common theory that the underthing below the university is the ruins of the city Belen. The evidence being that the letter that Kvothe sends to Ambrose at the university has the address as Beleny Baron, which almost sounds like Belen Barrow. I think Belen was the city that survived the Creation War but was then buried in time. Now, Eax is described as a luckless boy. The Lackless family, a surname that's gone through many changes over the years, is often described as being luckless, meaning that Eax could possibly be the founder of the Lackless family. And it's pretty much canon that Kvothe's mother is really Natalia Lackless, meaning he would be of Lackless blood. Now, the four-plate door is very similar in description to the Lockless box. This ancient box has no handle, lid, or hinges, and is assumed to have been passed down to every Lackless heir since Remembrance. And Eax is mentioned to have trapped the partial name of the moon in a box. Also, the mysterious thrice-locked chest in Coat's room in the Waystone Inn is similar to the door and box as well. It's practically seamless and has no hinges, its only features being a lock of iron, one of copper, and one that is unseen. Could these all be Lackless relics that are connected in some way? And what about the door, the one that we hear about from the two versions of the Lackless rhyme? Assuming that Eax is the founder of the Lackless family, I think it would only make sense that the door he was shut beyond is the Lackless door. And I'd argue that this door is the very same four-plate door in the university. Everyone likes to think of them as separate, but hear me out. Caudicus, the dude who was poisoning Mayor Elveron, said this to Kvothe. I've heard that on the oldest part of the Lackless lands, in the oldest part of their ancestral estate, there is a secret door. A door without a handle or hinges. There's no way of opening it. It is locked, but at the same time, lockless. No one knows what's on the other side. Now, this door is located on the oldest part of the Lackless lands, and their family is very, very old. In fact, their lineage can be traced back further than a millennium, and if it weren't for the burning of Keloptena, it's suspected that records could be found that would place their lineage as one of the oldest ever known. I'm gonna throw this out there, but I believe the Amyr burned Keloptena to hide the records of the Lackless lands and where the door is located, so that no one would ever seek it out and try to free Eax. And few would expect that the university would be on ancient Lackless lands. The Amyr have a select few who know of this secret and are guarding the Lackless door. In order to keep their eye on it, they built a university overtop the old ruins of Belen. The highest part of those ruins, the four-plate door, remains in plain sight only to those that are allowed into the Arcanum. Yet no one really knows what it is, and the Masters don't really talk about it because it's a secret better left alone.
Not many folk will take your search for the Amyr seriously, you realize. The mayor, however, is quite the extraordinary man. He's already come close to them, though he doesn't realize it. Stick by the mayor and he will lead you to their door.
It just so happens that the mayor, after dismissing Kvothe from Vintus, has agreed to further his education at the university by paying his tuition. I think in the third book, this will bring Kvothe back to the four-plate door. Now, if this door is basically a prison, you would think that there'd be a prison guard close by. I think this role falls on a very unsuspecting character, the mysterious person that's living deep in the archives in a reading hole directly one floor below the four-plate door. I'm talking about Puppet, nicknamed that because he carves wooden puppets of people. For some reason, he's allowed to live in the archives, and with a room filled with candles at that. I mean, if Simon and Will were able to find him, then I'm sure that Master Lauren is well aware of his presence. But why would Lauren allow him to have a lit flame? I was struck by a sudden idea. Puppet, I asked, do you know what is behind the locked door on the floor above this one? The large stone door? Puppet looked up. He gave me a long, stern look. His eyes were serious and clear. I don't think the four-plate door should be any concern to a student, do you? I think he definitely knows more than he's letting on. I've seen this idea from both Reddit users Dothrak'n'Roll and Marvo76. They mention that maybe Puppet keeps candles burning so that if they turn blue, he knows that the Chandrian are there and can sound an alarm to the Masters. So to sum up this theory, I think that EX could be locked behind the door, and I think the four-plate door, the Lackless door, and the door of the Amyr that's mentioned by the Kvothe could all be the same. As for the Doors of Stone, which happens to be the name for the third book, I don't think this refers to a single thing. I think it's both the four-plate door as well as all of the Greystones. The stone monoliths that are scattered all throughout the four corners of civilization and are said to be gateways to the Fey realm. Which leads me to the next theory. The four-plate door being made of a solid piece of grey stone brings to mind the Greystones, or the Waystones, or the Standing Stones, whatever you want to call them. In fact, the entire building that is the archives sort of resembles these stones. It's possible the four-plate door is one of the only remaining workable Greystones. I still think it could be EX's prison on top of this, as imprisoning him in the Fey realm so he can't return would make sense. I would actually go so far as to say that all the members of the Lackless family have a bit of Fey blood in them. In fact, there's rumors around EX mentioned in the books that directly hint at this. Some said he had a drop of fairy blood in him, and that kept his heart from ever knowing joy. Felurian describes EX as having the dark and changing eye. And if you paid attention throughout the books, Kvothe's eyes are described to change based on his mood. Sim, Will, Mola, and Devi all remark on how his eyes go dark when he's angry. Even Diok describes him as a little fey around the edges. Actually, there's many cases where he's described as having fey-like qualities. And this would explain why he's really talented and a lot of people are attracted to him. Kvothe's father even jokes about his mother running off and bedding down with a god, maybe referring to a Fey or even EX himself. Come to think of it, there's an interesting part of the book when Kvothe is walking with Felurian and they begin walking nightward toward the dark part of the Fane realm to build his shade. Kvothe uses sympathy to make a light and Felurian instantly tackles him to the ground. And they hear a terrifying movement nearby, like there's something lurking about. It seems like whatever was out there could sense Kvothe's heartbeat as Felurian actually sucks the breath out of him, temporarily stopping his heart, and then breathes her breath back into him. Anyway, this strange dark place is described as being the center of the Fey realm, and maybe this is where EX's prison is held, and where the four-plate door opens into. So maybe opening the door will be opening Pandora's box. It will free EX, as well as unleash a flood of Skrael and other creatures into the mortal realm, possibly even opening all of the Greystones and activating them, thus causing the disaster we see in the current day during Coate's time at the Waystone Inn. But wait, before discussing how the door could be opened, it's time for Bonus Theory! Real quick, I believe this theory originates from this Reddit user, not gonna try and pronounce that, but if you're familiar with the Kingkiller subreddit, you've probably read some of his theories. In short, he brings up the idea that maybe the four-plate door is the flute that Jax plays. Jax is said to have played a stone flute from the tallest tower in the Folding House. Now, many people do think that the Folding House could be the Underthing. Personally, I still think that the Underthing is the ruins of Belen, but I think it could also be connected to the Fey realm in some way, like the Underthing was the mechanism that was needed to open up the gateway to the Fey realm. I don't know, there's a lot of strange gears and mechanisms in the Underthing that must have been used for something. Anyway, at the top of the Underthing would be the door. The round keyholes on the four-plate door are reminiscent of the finger holes on a flute. So maybe the name of the wind or music is the key for the door. It's actually rumored that Kvothe knows a song that can open any lock, so maybe that's what it's referring to. Kvothe and Jax also mirror each other in many different ways. Jax plays his flute to draw out the moon, like how Kvothe playing his lute brings Ari out of her hiding. So maybe like how EX or Jax started the creation war by pulling the moon into the Fae, Kvothe will open the door and bring Ari with him. Or, you know, maybe there's just absolutely nothing behind the four-plate door. It's just a test to awake the student's sleeping mind. They get a pat on the back. Anyway, with all that, let's quickly go over some ways that the door could be opened. It's possible the Lackless box could contain a partial name or piece of the moon that's needed as a key. And it would make sense to hide this in a box that seems impossible to open and keep it all the way in Ventus, since I suspect they don't want people opening the door. Since I think the Lackless door could be the same as the 4-plate door, then the two versions of the Lackless rhyme seem to be telling us the things needed to open it. I did go over these rhymes briefly in another video, so to save time, I'll write in a comment below what I think each part means. Also, Ari gave Kvothe a key from the Underthing, and maybe this is needed. And maybe in the Underthing there's even a back entrance to the door. And there's also the 4 doors of the mind, which are mentioned numerous times in the books. These include sleep, forgetting, madness, and death. The fact that there's 4 of these makes me wonder if they are directly related to the door in the archives, but I'm just not really sure how to connect that idea. How do you think the door is opened? Even now, after going through numerous Reddit theories and searching through the books myself for clues while preparing this video, I still can't say with absolute certainty what's behind the door. Honestly, I feel like it could be any of these, even multiple of them, though there's always the possibility that come the 3rd book, we could all be wrong. What do you think is behind the 4-plate door? Let me know in the comments down below. Also, if you want to talk about books with people that love fantasy, then feel free to join my Discord server. The link to that is in the description. And I'll also leave a link to the Crockery, which is an amazing Kingkiller Chronicle Discord server where you can connect and chat with others who are also waiting for the Doors of Stone.